morning, everybody, and welcome to Arcola Theatre on this beautiful, beautiful day. My name's Famata Conte, and I've been the Sustainability Manager at Arcola Theatre for the last 4.5 years. Arcola has a strong commitment to sustainability. We define it as one of our 3 main business areas, and we've had an environmental policy since 2007. And part of our environmental policy is about showcasing renewable energy technology in the building. And through that, we've spun out another company called Arcola Energy, who specialise in hydrogen fuel cell research and development. And if anyone has some time after the event, I'd love to give you a tour and show you how you can combine a theatre and a fuel cell company in the same office. I'd also really pleased to let you know about the next show that we have opening at Arcola, which is tomorrow evening. It's called Clarion, and it's about the British press, so it should be a very interesting show. Thank you very much, Darren.
Thank you. Thank you. So, without further ado, on to the manifesto launch itself. And so, if we can now welcome the leader of the Green Party, Natalie Bennett, and Caroline Lucas, elected as MP for Brighton Pavilion in 2010.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming along. I'm very proud today to be presenting this manifesto, our plan, the Green Party of England and Wales plan for the next 5 years. Our manifesto is shaped by a vision of a future Britain and our principles and values that say that no one in this, the world's 6th richest economy, should fear not being able to put food on the table, not being able to keep a roof over their head. This is a politics that's founded in humanity, in a caring Britain, but also a politics that doesn't deny, as the other parties do, the physical limits of our natural world. This is a new kind of politics, the end of politics as usual, the business as usual politics that accepts the economy and society being run for the benefit of the few, not for the many. This is a vision that sees the end of the disastrous policy of austerity that's making the poor, the disadvantaged and the young pay for the greed and the fraud of the bankers. And this is a vision that's exciting increasing numbers of Britons. If you think back to 2010, about 1 in 100 voters chose the Green Party. You look at the polls, we're now looking at 1 in 20 and maybe many more voters who are choosing to go green. And of course, this is a unique election for the Green Party. It's our first as the parliamentary party, following the election of the wonderful Caroline Lucas in Brighton Pavilion in 2010. Voters have seen what just one Green MP can achieve. They can imagine what a strong group of Green MPs can achieve in the next Parliament. And that's built on what's known as the Green Surge. Our membership is now over 59,000, much bigger than UKIP and the Lib Dems. And we're now standing in nearly 95% of seats in England and Wales. Now, at the heart of this manifesto is a vision of a fair economy. That fair economy demands the end to austerity. It demands that we restore and enhance the essential public services that we all, but particularly the most vulnerable, need. That restoration of the public realm, combined with investment in renewable energy and energy conservation, that can create 1 million quality, stable jobs, rebuilding our public sector. 400,000 of those jobs are in the NHS and social care. And that fair economy is paid for by the rebalancing that we so desperately need to see multinational companies and rich individuals paying their fair share in taxes as they're simply not paying now. And that fair economy also demands that every worker is paid a living wage. It's really not a radical statement to say that if you work full-time, you should earn enough money to live on. Yet we're the only UK party who's saying that the minimum wage should immediately be lifted to a living wage and should reach £10 an hour by 2020. Also at the heart of this manifesto is the protection of the NHS, our NHS. The manifesto sets out a vision of a publicly owned and publicly run NHS, with 0% of public money going into private profit, and the expensive, destructive market removed from our health service. And behind that is an understanding of what privatisation has really meant for so many of our public services. It's meant the cutting of the pay and condition of workers. It's meant the cutting of the quality of services. And it's meant the shovelling of public money into private hands. And of course, one of our most popular policies, we want to bring the railways back into public hands and see them run for the benefit of passengers, not shareholders. And also, absolutely at the heart of this manifesto is the understanding of the pressingly urgent need to create the conditions for a safer climate. Many voters have noticed how in the first leader debate, I was the only person to talk about climate change. All of the others, in 2 hours, couldn't find space for the 2 words, climate change. We are acknowledging that need. And in a minute, Caroline will be providing you with an outline of the exciting plans in this manifesto that ensure that Britain is not only doing its share in cutting carbon emissions, but is also tackling acute social issues such as fuel poverty and energy security while providing good quality jobs. But first, I'd like to reflect on the choice facing voters on May 7. We have the kind of politics that we have now because voters have felt pushed by the first-past-the-post electoral system into often choosing the lesser of 2 evils. You've got 2 barely separable parties jostling for the votes of the swing voters in the swing seats. That's given us the kind of politics that we have now, a politics that's left so many disappointed and even depressed. But the opportunity for real change is in voters' hands on May 7. By voting for what they believe in, they can transform British politics. They can create a peaceful political revolution. That's what this manifesto offers, that's what the Green Party offers, and that's why I'm saying vote Green on the 7th of May. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much. And now straight on to Caroline. Caroline Lucas.
Thank you, Darren. As Natalie said, this is a manifesto for a fairer society, but it's also a manifesto for a safer planet. Just a few short weeks ago, actually, the leaders of the 3 main parties signed up to a climate pledge saying that climate change is one of the greatest threats that we face. Well, the Green Party agrees with them. So how odd it is, then, that none of the other parties have made the environment or climate change a priority in the election campaign so far. Indeed, as Natalie said, they've hardly mentioned it at all. We recognise that tackling the environmental crisis isn't some luxury that is only possible when there are good economic times. It's not something that can be discarded when times are tough, like that extra cappuccino on the way to work. Tackling the environmental crisis isn't a distraction from the economic difficulties we face. It's the way out of them. And it's also an amazing opportunity. Taking strong measures to address the cold homes crisis demonstrates what we mean. Who wouldn't want to live in a home that was warm and dry? Who wouldn't want not to have to worry every month about whether or not there's enough money to pay fuel bills? Around 9,000 people die prematurely each year in the UK because they cannot afford to heat their homes. That's more than the number killed on our roads or through alcohol. That is a national scandal in the 6th richest country in the world. Fuel poverty is blighting the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in this country who are struggling to pay those fuel bills. And it doesn't just cause discomfort, it causes real ill health as well. It's been estimated that Cold homes cost the NHS around £1.3 billion every year. It's been estimated that 2 million children are growing up in cold homes. And yet, over the past 2 years, the number of energy-efficient measures that are being installed in UK homes has fallen by a staggering 80%. So we will provide a free nationwide retrofit insulation programme, concentrating on areas where fuel poverty is most serious. And some of those areas I've seen for myself in places like Brighton, where I'm standing for re-election. Our programme is designed to insulate 9 million homes in total, delivered by local authorities, creating over 100,000 jobs. And there'd be an option of a further £15,000 in subsidised loans from the Green Investment Bank for further green energy improvements. We would invest around £45 billion over the course of the Parliament. And that could be paid for by using some of the £12 billion a year that we raise by increasing corporation tax, or we could redirect some of the government's current £100 billion infrastructure budget. Extraordinarily, not one penny of that budget is currently earmarked for energy efficiency measures. So the money is there. The issue is one of political choice. It is nonsense to say we can waste billions on new roads or on HS2, but we can't afford to keep people warm in their own homes. And for every pound invested in home energy efficiency, £1.27 is returned to the economy in terms of the increases and the additions that that spending makes in our economy. That is the only way to permanently bring down household energy bills, not like Labour's temporary energy price freeze. But it's also a crucial way of not just getting our energy bills down, but to the end, and ending the scandal of cold homes. But it's also a way of getting our climate emissions down and creating thousands and thousands of jobs in every constituency around the country. That is just one way of creating the greener, fairer Britain that we want to see. And it's an example of the kind of practical policies that the Greens will push in the next Parliament. All of the polls indicate that no one single party is likely to win overall control. That means that the role of smaller parties will be more important than ever. We've ruled out any kind of support to a Conservative government, but we would look at supporting a minority Labour government on a case-by-case basis. That would give us a real opportunity to push Labour on the policies that we know the public wants and which are at the heart of our manifesto, whether that's scrapping nuclear weapons or reversing the privatisation in our NHS, whether that's returning local schools to local control or bringing rail back into public ownership. We have the vision of a fairer, greener world. We have the practical policies to achieve it. And as our membership growth shows, we're gaining in the power to achieve it as well. Thank you.
We have time now for a few questions, and then we'll move on to one-to-one interviews that Natalie will be available for. So I saw Michael first.
Michael Crick from Channel 4 News. Your figures at the back. By 2019, you're only borrowing £21 billion a year. Isn't that incredibly conservative? I mean, if you really were committed to ending austerity, you would be borrowing a lot more than that.
Well, of course, what you're missing from that equation, Michael, is the income side, which is the fact, as I said in my introductory speech, we have to make big multinational companies and rich individuals pay their way. And we've set out in the back there the details of that. We're talking about cracking down on tax avoidance and evasion, and we're really looking at restoring HMRC, the staffing of which has been slashed away, to help achieve that. We've got the wealth tax, which can be bringing in $25 billion by the end of the Parliament. We've got the Robin Hood tax on the financial sector, $20 billion by the Parliament. The figures are all set out there. The fact is we need to rebalance this society so those multinational companies and rich individuals are paying their way in a way they simply aren't at the moment.
That's the answer to a different
question.
Why not borrow more?
Thank you. You can follow that up later. We want to get a few more questions in, so second question there, yep.
what they're going to cut. If they're going to cut spending 100 billion on replacing Trident nuclear weapons, we're right there with them. If they're going to cut the national road building programme, we are right there with them. There are plenty of things that we are very happy to see cut, but we want to do it on a case-by-case basis, depending on what there is there on their manifesto. Well, I think certainly any more cuts to the welfare budget would be pretty unacceptable.
One of the things we're focused on is the sort of things we particularly want to focus on is, the disabled have been incredibly heavily hit under this government. The Independent Living Fund, bedroom tax, also public sector workers, the whole public sector cuts. So there's a whole range of things there. And but I think it's very difficult at this point in time with the great political uncertainty, and there's still potential for real political change, to actually talk through the negotiations on May 8 and afterwards when there's so much uncertainty.
But that sounds like you're very clear that you do not support any more welfare cuts.
We'd be supporting on a case-by-case basis. If there was a vote on more welfare cuts, I think it's unlikely, but as Natalie says, we can't predict everything in advance, but it's very unlikely the Greens would support that.
Thank you. We'll take a question there.
Following from that, Lewis Bollinger and ITV News, doesn't that mean you have to be a bit more honest with voters and say a vote for the Green Party isn't necessarily an end to austerity?
No, well, Wes, what we're doing is setting out the vision, the principles, how we make decisions, and that's what's set out here. And this is really, a model of an end to Thatcherism. So many decades on, we've been stuck in that kind of ideology. And what we're doing here is setting out a whole vision of how Britain can work differently, humanely, fairly. And that's something that people, I hope many people, are choosing to vote for, are choosing to support, and will choose to support on May 7. It's a chance of offering something different. And that's something I find out on the doorsteps here in Hackney and all around the country. People are desperate for real change.
Thanks. I'll take another question there.
Thank you, Eleanor Garnier, BBC News. Welfare currently tops the government's spending. There's the biggest outlay the government has. There's no detail here on any of the welfare costs that you would have.
Well, I think if you start off on welfare, you're talking about, to start off with pensions. And we've announced that we will have a citizen's pension, which is £180 for singles and £310 for couples. And what that does is lifts every pensioner out of poverty by definition. And we also talk about lifting the carers allowance. There's a whole lot of detail in there. For anyone who hasn't found it yet, it's all there on the website. We are the Green Party, so we haven't given you out the printed versions, but you can find it all there searchably, the PDF on the website. Well, it's all set out there in detail. I think going through detailed numbers at this point isn't the most useful thing. I think the principle that no pensioner should live in poverty and that we should lift the income of carers who are providing so much value, so much essential services to our society are two of the things to focus on.
Right.
Okay, well, one of the things to set out in there is basically we're halving the support to private pensions. Private pensions, are costing the government, the subsidies for private pensions are costing the government a lot. Quite a bit of the funding for that comes from the ending the subsidy to private pensions.
Okay, thank you. We'll leave the formal part of the press conference there. Caroline has to whiz back for important engagement in her constituency. Natalie will be available for one-to-one interviews now. And we've also got one of the co-authors of the manifesto, Brian, here at the front, who will be happy to provide additional detail on costings and so on. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and thank you both to Caroline and Natalie. Thank you.
I can't hear anything in my ear. Just half. No good. Oh, I can now.